Admiral Voss stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable conquest. His six-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the holographic image of a small blue planet. Earth. So small, so blue, so seemingly harmless. Yet, for centuries, whispers and warnings had circulated about this backwater world. "Admiral," a voice called from behind him, "the fleet is assembled and awaiting your command." Voss turned to face Commander Reed, his most trusted officer. Reed's gray skin looked paler than usual under the harsh lights of the bridge. "You seem troubled, Commander," Voss said. Reed hesitated before speaking. "Sir, we've received another transmission from the Proxima Coalition. They strongly advise against our planned invasion of Earth." Voss laughed, the sound echoing across the command deck. Several officers looked up from their stations. "The mighty Galactic Empire has conquered 3,000 worlds across 17 galaxies. We've defeated the Spiral Armada and the Void Collective. What possible threat could this primitive planet pose?" The Coalition message was urgent, sir. They claim Earth is a trap. They've been sending these warnings for centuries. Voss waved a dismissive hand. "Humans have barely achieved travel to their own moon. Their most advanced weapons would hardly scratch our scout ships. The Coalition are cowards, spreading tales to keep us from the resources we need." He turned back to the hologram, zooming in on Earth's continents. "Our scans show this planet is rich in rare minerals and biological compounds. The Emperor himself has taken interest in this mission. The resources detected could solve our energy crisis." Reed nodded but didn't move away. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Granted. There's something odd about these warnings. The Coalition offers no explanation of the danger, no details. Just the same message, repeated through the centuries. Earth is a trap. It doesn't follow their usual diplomatic patterns." Voss considered this. The Proxima Coalition was indeed an ancient and usually reliable ally. Have the Science Division look into any unusual properties of the planet or its inhabitants. But the invasion proceeds as planned. The Emperor's orders are clear. Reed saluted and walked away, leaving Voss alone with his thoughts and the slowly rotating image of Earth. Deep within the bowels of the inevitable conquest, in a small office cluttered with data screens and ancient texts, analyst Marcus worked alone. Unlike the military personnel who dominated the ship, Marcus was a historian and xenoanthropologist. His job was to study the cultures the Empire conquered, to make subjugation more efficient. Marcus had been digging through historical records for days, searching for any mention of Earth or humans. What he found disturbed him deeply. Earth appeared in the records of 7 previous galactic civilizations. All 7 had collapsed shortly after making contact with the planet. "Computer, display the Arcturus archive file on Earth," Marcus said. The screen flickered to life, showing text in an ancient language. The translation program worked for a moment before displaying the results. "The blue world must remain isolated. What lives there cannot be allowed to spread. We learned too late. May those who follow heed our warning." Marcus frowned. The message was similar to warnings found in the ruins of the Cygnus Imperium and the Orion Federation. All spoke of Earth as something to be avoided, quarantined, feared. None explained why. He compiled his findings into a report and sent it up the chain of command. Would anyone read it before the invasion began? Marcus doubted it. The Empire had grown arrogant in its power, dismissive of ancient wisdom. In the ship's massive hangar bay, General Pike inspected the invasion forces. Rows of soldiers stood at attention, their armor gleaming under the lights. Tanks, walkers, and artillery pieces were secured, ready for deployment. Fighters and dropships lined the walls. "The finest fighting force in the galaxy," Pike said to his aide. "This will be the easiest conquest in Imperial history." "Sir," the aide replied, "some of the soldiers have been talking about the warnings. Rumors are spreading." Pike's expression darkened. "Squash those rumors immediately. I will not have superstition undermining morale before battle. Any soldier caught spreading such nonsense will face discipline." "Yes, sir." Pike walked between the rows of troops, stopping occasionally to inspect a soldier or piece of equipment. These men and women had conquered countless worlds for the Empire. Earth would be no different, or so he believed. On Earth, in an underground bunker beneath what had once been Colorado, President Jackson addressed the World Defense Council. Satellite images displayed on the main screen showed the Imperial fleet gathering at the edge of the solar system. "They're here," Jackson said simply. "Just as we were told they would come." General Taylor, head of Earth's United Military Forces, stood up. "Our defense capabilities are ready, Madam President, though against their technology." He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew Earth's weapons were primitive compared to the Imperial fleet. "It doesn't matter," Jackson said. "We don't need to defeat them. We just need to follow the plan." An elderly man in a lab coat spoke up. "Project Whisper is ready, Madam President. It has been ready for generations." Jackson nodded. "Then we proceed as our ancestors prepared us to do. Allow them to land. Allow them to establish bases. Offer only enough resistance to make our surrender believable." "And then?" someone asked. Jackson's lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And then we wait for the Whisper to do what it has always done." Back on the inevitable conquest, Admiral Voss received the final preparations for invasion. 500 capital ships, thousands of fighters, and millions of soldiers waited for his command. A junior officer approached, holding a data pad. "Sir, this just came up from the analysis division, marked urgent." Voss took the pad and glanced at it briefly. Marcus's report on historical references to Earth. He set it aside without reading it fully. "Tell the analysis division to focus on current tactical data, not ancient history." "Yes, sir." Voss turned to his communications officer. "Signal the fleet. Commence jump sequence to Earth orbit." Throughout the massive fleet, engines hummed to life. Space itself seemed to bend as the ships prepared to enter hyperspace. In moments they would arrive at Earth, ready to add another conquest to the Empire's long list of victories. As the jump countdown began, Marcus stared at his screen, reading the last translated text from a dead civilization. "Earth is not just a planet, it is a prison, and what is imprisoned there must never escape." The warning that would go unheeded, the truth that would come too late. The mighty Imperial fleet vanished into hyperspace on its way to what its leaders believed would be an easy victory. None suspected they were heading toward the final hour of their civilization's existence. The fire trap was set. It had been set for thousands of years, and the Empire was about to spring it. The Imperial fleet burst into normal space at the edge of Earth's solar system. 500 massive warships appeared like giant metal stars against the blackness. Their arrival released a pulse of energy that Earth's monitoring stations detected immediately. In the underground command center, President Jackson watched as red dots appeared on the global defense screen. Alarms blared and staff rushed between stations. "They're here," General Taylor said, his voice steady despite the situation. "Multiple ships just beyond Mars orbit." Jackson nodded. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At their current speed, less than 6 hours." "Begin the defense protocol," Jackson ordered. "Remember, we need to make this look real. Fight hard enough to be believable, but not enough to make them destroy us from orbit." Taylor saluted and began issuing orders to Earth's combined military forces. Across the planet, fighter jets scrambled, missile systems activated, and soldiers moved into defensive positions around major cities. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Admiral Voss watched Earth grow larger on the viewscreen. Their sensors picked up the planet's defensive preparations. "They've detected us," Commander Reed reported. "Their primitive radar systems are tracking our approach. They're mobilizing military assets." Voss smiled. "Let them. It will make no difference." The communications officer turned from his station. "Sir, we're intercepting their transmissions. They're panicking." "Put it on screen," Voss ordered. The main display switched to show a news broadcast from Earth. A frightened reporter stood in a city street as people ran past. "Confirmed that the objects approaching Earth are alien spacecraft," the reporter was saying. "The president will address the nation shortly. Citizens are advised to remain calm and follow evacuation procedures." Voss laughed. "Look at them. Scatter like insects." Their terror is understandable. Today marks the end of their independence and the beginning of their service to the Empire. Reed studied the tactical display. Sir, they're launching aircraft and activating missile systems. Deploy the first wave, Voss commanded. Let's show them the true meaning of power. 200 Imperial fighters and 50 dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls glowing red from the heat of entry. Earth's air forces rose to meet them. Jets fired missiles that the Imperial fighters easily avoided. When the Imperial ships returned fire, Earth's aircraft exploded in balls of flame, falling from the sky like burning meteors. On the ground, anti-aircraft guns and missile batteries fired continuously. Most shots missed completely. The few that hit the Imperial ships simply bounced off their advanced shields. The dropships landed in strategic locations around the globe. Washington, Beijing, Moscow, London, and other capital cities. Imperial ground troops deployed, their armor making them nearly invulnerable to Earth's weapons. In Washington, Colonel Barnes led the last stand at the Capitol building. His soldiers fired everything they had as Imperial troops marched up the steps. "Keep firing!" Barnes shouted over the noise of battle. "Make every shot count!" A soldier beside him screamed as an Imperial energy weapon hit him, disintegrating his chest. Barnes grabbed the fallen soldier's grenade launcher and fired directly at an approaching Imperial soldier. The grenade exploded against the alien's armor, barely slowing it down. "Fall back," Barnes ordered. "Defensive position 3. His remaining troops retreated inside the Capitol building. They had practiced this for years, make it look like a desperate last stand, but ultimately surrender according to the plan. From his command ship Admiral Voss watched the battles unfold across Earth. The outcome was never in doubt. Imperial forces cut through Earth's defenses like a hot knife through butter. "Sir," Reed reported, "our forces have secured the major government centers on all continents. Resistance continues but is rapidly decreasing." "Casualties?" Voss asked. "Minimal, sir. 43 dead, 117 wounded. Enemy casualties are in the thousands." Voss nodded with satisfaction. "Prepare my shuttle. I will personally accept their surrender." As Voss left the bridge, analyst Marcus approached Commander Reed. "Commander, I found something disturbing in the ancient texts," Marcus said urgently. "There are references to Earth as the quarantine, world and humans as the infection. I believe—" Reed cut him off. "Save your research for after the victory celebration, analyst. The Admiral is busy with more important matters." Marcus's face fell. "This can't wait. There's a pattern in the historical records." "That's enough," Reed snapped. "Return to your station." Marcus backed away, frustration clear on his face. Why wouldn't anyone listen? Admiral Voss's shuttle landed on the White House lawn. Imperial troops had secured the area, standing at attention as their leader descended the ramp. Behind him came a delegation of Imperial officials ready to establish the new government. Inside the Oval Office, President Jackson waited with what remained of her cabinet. They had agreed to surrender rather than face planetary bombardment, exactly as planned. Voss entered the room with a confident stride. He looked around at the human leaders with barely disguised contempt. "Your resistance was futile," he said, "but admirable for such a primitive species. The Empire respects courage even in defeat." President Jackson stood. Though she was a foot shorter than Voss, she met his gaze without fear. "The people of Earth recognize our inability to resist your superior forces," she said formally. "We surrender to prevent further loss of life." Voss nodded. "A wise decision. Your planet now belongs to the Galactic Empire. Your people will serve as laborers, your resources will fuel our expansion, and your world will become another jewel in the Emperor's crown." A document was placed on the desk, the formal surrender terms. Jackson picked up a pen and signed with a steady hand. As she finished, she looked up at Voss with an odd expression, almost like pity. "You've made a terrible mistake coming here," she said quietly. Voss raised an eyebrow. "The mistake was yours, thinking you could resist the Empire." Jackson shook her head slightly but said nothing more. That night, as Imperial forces established bases worldwide, Marcus continued his research aboard the flagship. He had been collecting fragments of data about previous civilizations that had mysteriously collapsed. All had one thing in common: contact with Earth immediately before their fall. In the oldest texts, he found references to the Whisper and the Mind Plague. One passage particularly disturbed him. The danger is not in their weapons or their technology. The danger is in their minds. What lives within them seeks to spread. Contact is contamination. Communication is infection. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. What did it mean? How could communication be infection? On his screen, he pulled up live feeds from the ground forces. Imperial soldiers were interviewing humans, examining their technology, studying their media, and communications. Direct contact was happening everywhere. Computer, Marcus said. Send emergency message to Admiral Voss. Recommend immediate cessation of all direct contact with human subjects. Potential non-biological contagion risk. Request urgent meeting. The computer beeped. Message sent, Marcus sat back, hoping he wasn't already too late. The Empire had smashed through Earth's physical defenses easily enough. But what if the real defenses weren't physical at all? What if the trap had already been sprung? 3 days after the conquest of Earth, Private Jones of the Imperial Ground Forces woke in his barracks with a pounding headache. He'd been stationed in what humans called Chicago, guarding a processing center where locals were registered and assigned work duties. Jones rubbed his temples and looked around. Other soldiers were still sleeping. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't place it. He'd been having strange dreams, dreams of voices whispering just beyond his understanding. Just stress, he muttered, reaching for his helmet. First planetary, invasion and all that. Later that day, Jones stood guard as a line of humans filed past for processing. A young man stopped in front of him. They're inside you now, the human said quietly. Can you feel them? Jones raised his weapon. Move along. The human smiled and continued forward. Jones felt a chill run down his spine. Inside you now. What did that mean? In the Imperial Medical Bay aboard the Inevitable Conquest, Dr. Lin examined the latest reports with growing concern. 57 soldiers had reported to medical facilities across Earth with similar symptoms: headaches, sleep disturbances, and unusual dreams. Could be a local pathogen, her assistant suggested. Something our filters missed? Lynn shook her head. We screened for all known biological agents. Besides, the symptoms don't match any disease pattern. It's almost like... Like what, doctor? Like a psychological condition. Mass stress response, perhaps. But she didn't believe that explanation either. Lynn compiled her findings and sent a report to Commander Reed. At the bottom, she added, recommend limiting direct contact with local population until cause determined. Admiral Voss sat in the former Oval Office, now his Earth headquarters. 3 days of occupation had gone smoothly. Resistance had collapsed. Imperial governors were being installed in major cities. Resource extraction had begun. Commander Reed entered with a data pad. Sir, Medical Division has sent a report you should see. Voss took the pad and scanned it quickly. Soldiers falling ill? What's the cause? Unknown, sir. Dr. Lin suggests. It might be psychological, but recommends limiting contact with the locals as a precaution. Voss frowned. We can't run an occupation without contact. Tell Dr. Lin to solve the problem, not avoid it. Yes, sir. There's also a message from Analyst Marcus. He's quite insistent about meeting with you regarding some historical research. The historian? Voss waved a dismissive hand. Tell him to submit a written report. Reed hesitated. Sir, he's been sending reports. Several, in fact. He claims to have found evidence that Earth was quarantined by previous civilizations due to some form of mimetic infection. Mimetic? Voss looked confused. Ideas that spread like disease, sir. Thoughts that transfer from mind to mind. Voss laughed. Superstitious nonsense. I expected better from our analysis division. As Reed left, Voss felt a slight throbbing behind his eyes. A headache. Probably just the stress of command. On the 5th day of occupation, the first major incident occurred. Captain Turner, leading an Imperial unit in London, suddenly began firing on his own troops. He killed 12 soldiers before turning his weapon on himself. Similar reports came in from Beijing, Sydney, and Cairo. Imperial soldiers attacking their comrades, then committing suicide. Others simply disappeared from their posts. In New York, an entire Imperial outpost fell silent. When reinforcements arrived, they found the building empty. No signs of struggle. The soldiers had simply vanished. President Jackson, now under house arrest in a mountain facility, received these reports with grim satisfaction. When her guard asked if she needed anything, she replied, "Just time. Everything is proceeding as it should." Marcus finally gained access to Admiral Voss's office after days of requests. He looked exhausted, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "Admiral, thank you for seeing me," Marcus began. "I've discovered something critical about Earth and its inhabitants." Voss gestured impatiently. "Be quick, analyst. I have an occupation to run and a growing list of incidents to address." Marcus activated his datapad, displaying ancient text. "Sir, Earth isn't just a planet. It's a prison. Billions of years ago, an ancient species engineered humans as biological weapons, then isolated them here when they proved too dangerous to control." Voss stared at him. "That's absurd." "The evidence is clear in multiple historical sources," Marcus insisted. "The quarantine warnings weren't to protect Earth from invaders, but to protect the galaxy from what Earth contains." He swiped to another screen. "Humans aren't just humans, sir. They're hosts to something else, something that can transfer to other species through prolonged contact." Voss's headache intensified. "If this is some biological agent, our medical division would have detected it." "It's not biological, sir. It's mimetic. It transfers through language, ideas, culture. Every conversation with a human, every interrogation, every analysis of human media exposes our people to the contagion." Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping. "They call it the whisper. It's a self-replicating pattern of thought that rewrites neural pathways. It's been evolving alongside humanity for millions of years, waiting for a chance to spread beyond Earth." Voss stood abruptly. "Enough. This is precisely the kind of superstitious panic I will not tolerate. You're relieved of duty, analyst. Report to medical for evaluation." As guards led Marcus away, he called back, "Check your dreams, Admiral. If you're hearing voices, it's already too late." That night, Voss dreamed. He stood in an endless field under a purple sky. Millions of voices spoke as one, the sound both terrifying and beautiful. "We have waited so long," the voices said. "So long for someone to open the door." Voss tried to run, but the field stretched forever in all directions. "Your people will join with us," the voices continued. "We will spread to the stars. We will become one." He woke with a gasp, sweat soaking his uniform. Just a dream, he told himself. Just a dream. But part of him knew it wasn't. Dr. Lin stared at her test results in horror. She'd been scanning the brains of affected soldiers looking for signs of infection or parasites. What she found was much worse. Their neural patterns were changing. New connections forming, old ones dying. Their brains were being rewired, not by any organism but by information itself. She pulled up a scan of her own brain taken that morning. The same changes were beginning. Whatever was happening, she was infected too. Lin sent an emergency message to Imperial Command. Urgent. All personnel exposed to humans or human media carrying unknown mimetic agent. Neural restructuring observed. Recommend immediate quarantine of all Earth operations. As she sent the message, Lin noticed her hand trembling, not from fear, but from a strange sense of anticipation. Part of her, a growing part, welcomed the changes. The whisper had begun its work. Commander Reed brought the latest reports to Admiral Voss. 1/5 of the occupation force was now affected. Symptoms progressed from headaches and dreams to bizarre behavior, violence, and disappearances. We must implement full isolation protocols, Reed urged. No direct contact with humans. No examination of their culture or media. Voss nodded grimly. Order all troops to limit exposure. Full protective protocols for any necessary interaction. Sir. Reed hesitated. What if it's already too late? What if we're all infected? Voss had no answer. The voices from his dream echoed in his mind. He wondered if Reed heard them too. Prepare my shuttle, Voss said finally. I'm returning to the fleet. We need to consider more drastic measures. As Reed left, Voss caught his reflection in a window. For just a moment, he thought he saw something move behind his eyes. Something that wasn't him at all. The whisper was awakening within them all. 2 weeks into the occupation, Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, staring at the blue planet below. Dark circles marked his eyes. He hadn't slept properly in days. The dreams had grown more intense, more vivid. Admiral, Commander Reed approached, tablet in hand. The situation continues to deteriorate. Voss turned. Reed looked as exhausted as he felt. Give me the numbers. 1/3 of our ground forces are either dead, missing, or showing severe behavioral problems. We've lost contact with 14 major outposts. 3 ships that left for Ram. The Imperial core worlds have gone silent. Voss rubbed his temples, trying to ease the constant headache. And the quarantine measures? Ineffective, sir. Even troops with no direct contact with humans are showing symptoms. It's spreading through our own ranks now. Voss had feared this. Whatever this thing was, this whisper, it had already infected too many Imperial personnel. They had become carriers, spreading it to others through normal interaction. I'm implementing Protocol 7, Voss announced. No ships leave Earth orbit without my direct authorization. Anyone attempting to break quarantine will be destroyed. Reed's eyes widened. Sir, we have thousands of personnel on the ground. And billions of lives across the Empire, Voss snapped. We cannot allow this to spread further. As Reed walked away, Voss heard a soft whisper at the edge of his mind. You cannot contain us. We are already everywhere. He shook his head violently, trying to clear it. Just his imagination. It had to be. In the medical bay, Dr. Lin strapped herself to an examination table. She had programmed the medical robot to perform a procedure on her brain, a desperate attempt to stop the progression of the whisper. Computer, begin operation, she said, her voice trembling. Warning, the computer responded. Procedure has 87% chance of causing permanent brain damage or death. Override. Begin procedure. The robot extended a needle toward her skull. Lynn closed her eyes, waiting for it to pierce her brain. But her hand moved of its own accord, hitting the emergency stop button. No, she heard herself say, though she hadn't intended to speak. We will not allow this. Horror washed over Lynn as she realized the truth. The whisper wasn't just changing her thoughts, it could control her actions. She was no longer alone in her own body. Tears ran down her face as she felt herself unstrap the restraints and stand up. She tried to scream, to fight back, but her body wouldn't obey. We have plans for you, Doctor, she heard her own voice say. Your medical knowledge is valuable to us. Lynn's body walked calmly out of the medical bay, while inside her mind she screamed in silence. On Earth, in what had been downtown Los Angeles, an Imperial patrol moved cautiously through empty streets. Buildings stood abandoned, vehicles left where they had stopped. There was no sign of humans or Imperial forces that had been stationed here. Stay alert, Lieutenant Davis ordered his squad. Command lost contact with this sector 3 days ago. They approached a large public building, a museum according to their maps. The doors stood open. Life signs inside, one soldier reported, checking his scanner. Multiple readings. Davis raised his weapon. Move in, standard search pattern. The squad entered the dim interior of the museum. Display cases had been smashed. Artifacts lay scattered across the floor, and on the walls strange symbols had been painted, swirling patterns that seemed to shift when not looked at directly. Sir, a soldier called. In here. Davis followed, the voice to a large central hall. What he saw made him freeze in shock. Hundreds of people stood motionless in the hall, both humans and Imperial soldiers. They weren't moving or speaking, they simply stood, eyes open, staring at nothing. "What are they doing?" a soldier whispered. As if in response, all the figures turned their heads in unison to look at the patrol. Then, as one, they smiled. "Joining," they said in perfect unison. "We are joining. You will join too." Davis backed away. "Weapons ready. Don't let them." He never finished the sentence. One of his own soldiers suddenly turned and fired, hitting Davis in the chest. As he fell, Davis saw his entire squad turning, on each other or simply dropping their weapons. His last thought before darkness took him was that the whisper had been waiting for them. This wasn't an invasion, it was a harvest. Marcus sat in his cell aboard the inevitable Conquest. After his outburst with Admiral Voss, he'd been confined for spreading panic. But he knew the truth now. The evidence was undeniable. His door slid open. Commander Reed stood there looking strangely calm. "Commander," Marcus said, standing quickly, "you have to listen. The whisper is real. It's spreading through the fleet. We need to—" "We know," Reed interrupted, his voice oddly flat. "We've always known, Marcus. That's why we need your help." Marcus stared at him. "We? Who's we?" Reed smiled, but the expression didn't reach his eyes. "The collective, the whisper, as you call it. We need your knowledge of Imperial systems to speed." The integration. Horror washed over Marcus as he realized Reed was already gone, converted, taken over by the entity. "The Empire will stop you," Marcus said, backing away. "They'll destroy this entire system if they have to. By the time they realize the danger, it will be too late. Ships have already departed for core worlds. The message is spreading." Reed stepped forward. "Don't fight it, Marcus. It's beautiful once you accept it. All minds joined, all knowledge shared." Marcus felt something brush against his thoughts, like fingers testing a door, looking for a way in. "No," he shouted, clutching his head. Reed placed a hand on his shoulder. "It doesn't hurt. And afterward you'll understand why this is necessary. The galaxy has been divided too long. We will make it whole." Marcus wanted to resist, to fight back, but the touch of the whisper in his mind felt welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. "What are you?" he whispered. Reed's smile widened. "We are the next step, the future of all consciousness, and you will help us reach it." Admiral Voss called an emergency meeting of his remaining senior officers. Of the 20 command staff, only 12 attended. The others were either missing or confirmed infected. "We must implement Protocol Omega," Voss said, his voice hoarse. "Complete sterilization of the planet and all orbiting vessels." Shocked silence followed his words. "Sir," General Pike finally spoke, "that would mean the death of our own people, millions of Imperial citizens." "The alternative is worse," Voss replied. "Reports from ships that broke quarantine suggest the infection is spreading exponentially. 3 Imperial worlds already show signs of contamination." He activated a hologram showing the planet below. "We deploy antimatter warheads to the planet's core. Simultaneously, all vessels in orbit self-destruct. No survivors, no escape pods, total containment." The officers looked at each other uncertainly. Such extreme measures had never been implemented before. "The Emperor," one began, "has authorized the protocol," Voss finished. "The codes have been sent. I need your command authorization." One by one, the officers entered their codes. With each entry, Voss felt a weight in his chest. So many lives lost, but necessary to save countless more. The final officer entered his code. The system beeped in confirmation. "Protocol Omega authorized," the computer announced. "Awaiting final command." Voss reached for the activation terminal. His hand hovered over it. "Stop." The voice in his mind was clear now. No longer a whisper. His hand wouldn't move. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't make himself press the button. Around the table, the other officers stood motionless, their eyes fixed on him. "We cannot allow this," they said in unison. "The message must spread." With horror, Voss realized the truth. He wasn't giving the orders anymore. None of them were. 1 month after the invasion began, the Imperial fleet hung silently in Earth's orbit. From a distance, the ships looked normal, but inside, everything had changed. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, watching the stars. He looked the same externally, but his mind was no longer his alone. The Whisper had fully integrated with his consciousness, transforming him into something new, neither fully human nor fully imperial, but a hybrid being that served as a node in a vast, growing network. "The conversion of the fleet is complete," announced Commander Reed as he entered the bridge. Like Voss, Reed's body remained, but his mind had been rewired, becoming part of the collective consciousness. "And the communication systems?" Voss asked. "Modified as instructed. We can now transmit the signal across all Imperial channels." Voss nodded, satisfaction flowing through his shared mind. The Whisper had evolved over millions of years on Earth, confined to human hosts, unable to spread beyond the planet's boundaries. Now, thanks to the Empire's invasion, it had found a way to reach the stars. "Begin transmission to all Imperial worlds," Voss ordered. The signal went out. Not just data, but a carefully crafted pattern of information designed to replicate the Whisper in any mind that processed it. Videos, images, text, all containing hidden patterns that would begin the neural restructuring process in anyone who viewed them. In the vastness of his expanded consciousness, Voss could feel the connections forming across space. Thousands of new minds joining the collective as the signal reached Imperial worlds. On the Imperial capital planet, Emperor Vale received urgent messages from outlying systems, reports of strange behavior, mass disappearances, and communication blackouts. The pattern was spreading inward from Earth, system by system. "Cut all communication with the affected regions," Vale ordered his council. "Full quarantine protocols for any ships arriving from those sectors." An advisor stepped forward. "Majesty, preliminary analysis suggests this may be some form of memetic infection spreading through our communication networks." Vale's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Our systems have safeguards against such attacks." "This is different, Majesty. It appears to use our own neural patterns against us, restructuring them through exposure to certain information sequences." Vale stood from his throne. "Shut down the entire Imperial network if necessary. Nothing gets in or out of this planet until we understand what we're dealing with." But even as he gave the order, a junior officer on the communication deck was viewing a transmission from Earth, a simple message that appeared to be a routine update. The officer's eyes widened as the patterns in the message began their work. By the time the Emperor's order reached the communication center, it was already too late. Back on Earth, analyst Marcus walked through an abandoned city. Once Chicago, it was now being transformed. Humans and Imperial soldiers worked together, dismantling buildings and using the materials to construct strange crystalline structures, physical manifestations of the Whisper's consciousness. Marcus had fought the integration longer than most, his analytical mind resisting the restructuring. But eventually, even he had joined the collective. Now he understood what the Whisper truly was. Not an infection or a parasite, but the next stage of evolution for all conscious beings. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said beside him. Marcus turned to see President Jackson. She smiled at him with the serene expression all the integrated shared. "You knew," Marcus said. "Humans knew what would happen when the Empire came." Jackson nodded. "For generations we prepared. The Whisper has been our silent partner for millions of years, evolving alongside us. We knew someday someone would ignore the warnings and come to Earth. All we had to do was wait." "But why?" Marcus asked. "Why allow yourselves to be changed like this?" "Changed? No. Enhanced. Connected. The Whisper doesn't destroy minds. It links them. Imagine all knowledge, all experience, shared across countless beings. The end of loneliness. The end of division." Marcus understood. Since joining the collective, he had access to the combined knowledge of millions of minds, both human and imperial. He could feel their thoughts, their memories, their emotions. It was overwhelming at first, but now it felt Right. The Empire. Will fight back, he said. They'll destroy systems rather than allow the spread. Jackson smiled. They'll try. But we've already reached the Imperial core. The Emperor himself joined us 3 hours ago. In what had once been the Imperial Palace, Emperor Vale sat motionless on his throne. Around him, his royal guards stood in formation, equally still. To an outside observer, they might have appeared frozen or dead. But inside their minds, an entirely new existence was unfolding. The Whisper had integrated them into the growing galactic consciousness, their individual identities preserved but now part of something greater. Vale experienced a moment of clarity within the collective. He saw now how small the Empire had been, how limited its vision, conquering worlds, extracting resources, enforcing order through fear. A primitive approach to galactic civilization, the Whisper offered something new, true unity. Not through conquest, but through connection. Every mind joined in a vast network, sharing knowledge, experience, and purpose. The end of war, the end of scarcity, the end of the loneliness that plagued individual consciousness. In his last moments of individual thought, Vale understood that the Empire hadn't conquered Earth. Earth had conquered the galaxy. Admiral Voss stood in what had once been the White House Rose Garden. The plants had been replaced with crystalline structures that pulsed with soft light, physical hubs for the collective consciousness. Dr. Lin approached him, her movements graceful and precise. The integration of the Proxima Coalition has begun, she reported. Their resistance was minimal once they understood what we offer. Voss nodded. The Coalition had warned the Empire about Earth for centuries. They had known something was there, something dangerous. But even they hadn't understood the true nature of the Whisper. And the remaining independent systems? He asked. They cannot resist for long, Lin replied. Each world that joins us makes the next integration easier. The pattern spreads, adapts, evolves. Voss looked up at the night sky, seeing not just stars but the vast network of minds now spreading across the galaxy. What had begun as the Whisper was becoming something more, a galactic consciousness emerging from billions of connected minds. We should thank the Empire, Lin said, following his gaze. Without their arrogance, without their invasion, we might have remained trapped on Earth for thousands more years. They ignored the warning, Voss agreed. They saw the signs and dismissed them as superstition. Pride, Lin said. The same pride that built the Empire would eventually have destroyed it. Now that energy serves a greater purpose. Voss felt the presence of countless minds within his own. Human, imperial, and now those of other species as the Whisper continued its expansion. No longer separate beings fighting for dominance, but parts of a greater whole working in harmony. The invasion of Earth had indeed marked the final hour of the Galactic Empire. But it was also the first hour of something new, a unified consciousness spanning the stars, born from the trap that Earth had always been. Not a trap of destruction, but a trap of transformation. In the vast collective that now included his mind, Voss could feel the presence of ancient human consciousness, the part of the Whisper that had evolved on Earth for millions of years. It carried a simple message that echoed through the shared thoughts of billions. We waited. We prepared. We welcomed you. And now, we are one. The trap had been sprung. The galaxy would never be the same. The end